If you are looking to overpay for a fixer-upper in the Boston area, then you found the right video. The iconic Beacon Hill, known for its historic charm, is attractive to many. But honestly, on a serious note, it's probably not what you think. So many people see Beacon Hill in movies and magazines, and they have this idea of what Beacon Hill is, but then when they start investigating about what it's like to live there, they have a whole different version. Listen, I went to college at Suffolk University, so I've been hanging around the Beacon Hill neighborhood of Boston for decades. I still hang around Beacon Hill as much as I can, and I am now lucky enough to sell homes in that area. In fact, I love this area of Boston so much that my husband Jim and I plan to retire to Beacon Hill as soon as we can. Trust me, I know Beacon Hill. So in this video, lucky enough for you, I'll be sharing everything that you need to know to live in Beacon Hill. I hope you enjoy. Hey, I'm Katie Norton. I'm a realtor in Massachusetts with William Ravis, and this channel is all about what it's like to live in the Boston area. So if you're thinking about moving to Boston, please give me a call. I would love to help. So let me give you an overview of Beacon Hill in Boston. The neighborhood of Beacon Hill, as you can see in this screenshot, is right in the heart of Boston. It's right along the Charles River, and it is Boston Common and the public gardens adjacent. In fact, the famous Freedom Trail starts right here in the heart of Boston in the Beacon Hill neighborhood. Because of the prime location of Beacon Hill, it has always been where the top of society has chosen to live in Boston, even as early as the early 1800s. This is where the elites would get away and set up shop, and it is still that way. So that actually makes this a really interesting real estate market when you compare it to other areas of Boston. And I'll talk more on that later. So again, just mentioning that this is a prime location in the heart of Boston, that allows for residents of Beacon Hill to easily get over to the Back Bay area of Boston. They can go over to the North End area of Boston. You could get to Government Center, Downtown Crossing. I mean, it's endless. When I say it's a walkability, the walkability of Beacon Hill in Boston, you could get to the Theater District as an example. Any part of Boston is basically going to be walkable from the Beacon Hill neighborhood. So you may think that Beacon Hill is this big, pretentious neighborhood, but it really has amazing qualities about it. First off is its historic charm. It's not by accident that the historic charm is here in Beacon Hill, because as we said, the Freedom Trail started right here in Beacon Hill. And so as early as the 1800s, there was a lot of building going on, and the historic charm has just continued, and the neighborhood has stayed consistent with that look and that vibe. Secondly, there's a large amount of fantastic retail in this area, and I'll get into more about that later. And finally, there is plenty of walkability if you're in Beacon Hill and you're trying to get out to any of the other neighborhoods in Boston. You could get to the North End, you could get to Government Center, Downtown Crossing, the Back Bay, the Theater District. Because Beacon Hill is so centrally located, the walkability to all the other neighborhoods in Boston is perfection. But living here in Beacon Hill is going to be expensive, as I'm pretty sure you probably already know before you clicked on this video. And just to give you a realistic picture, let's talk a little bit about parking. So as an example, if you decide to have a car in Beacon Hill, first you're going to have to find a place to park. So if you don't already buy a parking spot with your condo or single family house, you would need to do possibly one of the parking garages. And those could run you about at bare minimum $300 a month, and that goes all the way up to like $700 a month if you have a specific spot and you want to be close to your house. And if you want to go ahead and purchase a deeded parking spot, they start at $200,000 just for the spot. I mean, I've even heard of situations where the spot cost $1 million, and that's just for obvious reasons. Just like any real estate, it's going to be the location. And this is a true story. I have a friend who has a parking spot, and when she offers any of our friends to use it, we have to be thoughtful about what we're wearing that night, because the reality is, yes, the parking spot is great, but you have to climb out of your passenger side window to get out of the car. So you can have a parking spot in Beacon Hill and you can pay for it, but it's not always going to be an ideal. And you know, this part excites me, the retail and the food discussion around a neighborhood, especially the food stuff. Because if you know me, you might know that I had a dining source book, which is an official guidebook to all the restaurants on Nantucket, and also did one for Martha's Vineyard in Aspen. So food is definitely something that I pride myself on knowing a little bit about the restaurants in the different neighborhoods. So let me tell you about a couple of my favorites in Beacon Hill. If I'm talking about restaurants in Beacon Hill, I have to talk about Toscano. It's right in the heart of Charles Street, and Charles Street is the main restaurant and retail row, as I like to call it. But Toscano, for my family, goes back like 20 something years. My husband and I used to love going there. There was a work scenario that we went there one time where his work group got together, and it was just such a special, fun place, and we've been going ever since. So like, I can literally think about being pregnant there. I can think about celebrating some birthdays there. And most recently, when I sold my friend a condo in Beacon Hill, I brought her there as a celebration of the sale, and we had a couple other friends join us. So Toscano, it's a traditional Italian restaurant. That's all you need to know. The servers and the chefs go back 20 years. They have all worked there forever. The wine list is incredible. It is traditional Italian food at its finest. You can't go wrong with any of the dishes. I would also recommend going to 75 Chestnut. 75 Chestnut is just off of Charles Street on Chestnut Street. And again, I go back to many celebrations. My brother and sister-in-law used to live in Beacon Hill before they got married. So we'd go hang out with them and go to 75 Chestnut. It's sort of traditional American food on a higher end. And then the more newer restaurant that's just come into Beacon Hill is called 1928. And it's set up like a speakeasy. It's sort of hard to find. And when you go in there, the vibe is cool. The drinks, a mixologist is performing for you. That's what comes to mind, is it's performatory drinks and service. And then the food is excellent. So highly recommend that. And last but not least, the Paramount. And the Paramount has been a staple for breakfast and lunch in Beacon Hill for who knows how long, decades. The line goes out the door, but it's worth it every single time. So it's kind of destination in that you stand in line with everybody and first come, first serve. There's no reservations or anything like that. Those are some of my favorites. There's a few others. There's bars. There's a couple that I used to go to because when I was going to Suffolk, there were coffee shops like the Durn Street Deli. That was the Greek. My favorite Greek salad, my first commencement, that was another one. A lot of the people who work at the State House go to that one. I could go on, but those are a couple of my favorites. So in the end, just reach out to me if you want a specific recommendation. I'd be more than happy to hear what you're looking for and then recommend based on that. And then on the boutique side of things, I like to highlight a few. And it may always seem like I'm talking about my friends, but yeah, of course, I want to go places where I trust my friends. So Remy is one of my go-to boutiques in Beacon Hill. She also has a store on Nantucket, which is where I first learned about her store. But the thing about Remy is she sources really unique brands that you wouldn't normally hear about. And she's got her own unique style, and she's also got her own designs that she does and that she markets. So I like to go in there to see what's new and exciting, what's trending. So she keeps me up to date on all those trends. Another one is called Covet, C-O-V-E-T. And it's a funny name, but it's actually a consignment shop. So it's things that you might covet of other people's. I like to pop in there, and that's where I go if I'm looking for some very high-end stuff, but I'm not having a high-end budget day. So I like to pop into Covet and see what she's got. And honestly, you really have to go in there at least once a season because it just changes so often. And every once in a while, you will just get an absolute diamond of something. It's just the most exciting thing when you find a good buy in there. And then I'll just finish up by saying Crush is another great boutique. She does carry some high-end traditional brands like an Alice and Olivia, Revolve, a few things like that. So, you know, when you're shopping on Charles Street, hop into different places because you really do want to find different things. So last but not least, let's talk about the real estate in Beacon Hill. So as a consumer, I know you guys love looking at Zillow and finding out all the information. And I do think Zillow is a great platform for consumer information, but it's not the end all be all. And Beacon Hill is the perfect example for this. So if you looked into Zillow, it's going to say that the average home price is $1,094,000. So that might give you the idea that you could get stuff for $2 million or you could get stuff for $500,000, but that is just not true. Because of the amount of small condos, we're going to go heavy on the $1 million range. So when we talk about a $1 million price point in Beacon Hill, We are truly talking about a condo that either has one bedroom or no bedroom. It could be a studio apartment. Maybe it's on the lower level, like a garden level, which is going to be a little bit less desirable just from a safety perspective. Mice and rats are as nice as Beacon Hill is. It's a hill, it's in a city, and so there are going to be some rodents run around. If you can pop up to the $2 million mark, you're going to have a better shot at getting a second floor or a third floor condo or single family home. You're probably going to get a 2 or 3 bedroom and at least a 2 bath in that $2 to $3 million range. And then it just skyrockets because just like everywhere else, location is so important. So some of these homes can go up to 10, 15, 20 million, depending on the location. So it would be really important for you to contact me if you've got some things on Zillow that you're looking at, and then I can let you know what location, why it's priced that way, why the days on market are that way, and we can go from there. So the real estate in Beacon Hill, you really have to be specific and really get with me because I am knowledgeable about the price points on Beacon Hill, better than Zillow. So having said all that about the price point, I will say that inventory is limited. At any given time, there's maybe 6 or 7 places on the market. You need to be well educated about the market. You need to be prepared about what you want, what you're willing to sacrifice, and you need to be ready to the funds. You just need to be ready to make an offer when it comes up. So I have a perfect example of a friend who had been doing an Airbnb for 6 weeks every single fall into the winter of the past, call it 10 years. And so she really just fell in love with Beacon Hill. She lives on Nantucket full time. And she had asked me early on, can you keep an eye out on a condo on Beacon Hill? I'd love a 2 bedroom. I'd love a 3 bedroom. She had some ideas about what she did and didn't want. So she would send me photos and different ideas of what she was looking for. And then I would go and look at them and we would realize it wasn't right for her. And then boom, one day she found something, sent it to me. I got right in touch with the agent that had it as a listing because I knew him. And he got me right in to see it. They already had 2 other offers, but he was willing to let me see it so I could make sure. I sent her all the videos and she wanted to make an offer. We were ready to go that day. We made an offer and then somebody else made a better offer. And when he came back to me, he said his clients were nervous because she was looking at it sight unseen and they wanted to go with the better offer because that person had seen it twice. So unfortunately, we lost that offer in that moment. But I kept in touch with that agent, and sure enough, a week later, he came back. That family who had wanted to put an elevator in it, and it just wasn't they couldn't do it as part of the permitting. And so he came back to us and we stuck with our original offer and we were able to get that house that she wanted. And she has since moved in and she loves it more than anything she could ever imagine. So even though it was sight unseen, I was able to show the videos. I knew the market. I knew it was a valuable asset. I knew the price we were getting it for was going to be valuable down the road. So I knew if she didn't want to stay there after a couple of years, I could turn around and sell it. I'm afraid she'll be there for the next 10 years. And now my husband and I will have to look for our own place instead of buying this one from her. So if you're thinking about moving to Beacon Hill or any of the surrounding areas, please reach out. I would love to be a resource for you in this market because this is not a browse casually type of market. And this is a relationship building situation. So if you want to get into Beacon Hill, building a relationship and knowing the market is the best way to go. So if you're thinking about moving to Beacon Hill or the surrounding areas, please reach out. I was especially excited to make this video about Beacon Hill because my tagline, so to speak, or my genre of real estate that I really focus on is Beacon Hill to Brant Point and everything in between. So if you have any questions or concerns, please comment or reach out to me. I'm happy just to educate you on the things that I know about Beacon Hill to Brant Point and everything in between. So if you're wondering why my tagline has become Beacon Hill to Brant Point, it's because first, if you listen to this video, I did go to college in Beacon Hill in the 90s. I've spent a lot of time on the South Shore of Boston. I've raised my kids down here and then moved back to Milton where I'm currently living. But we've got a summer house on the Cape with our family and my husband and I got married down there. And now we spend our summers with our kids over on Nantucket, which is Brant Point. So Beacon Hill to Brant Point and everything in between. I may have just started selling real estate less than 5 years ago, but I've been buying and selling real estate from Beacon Hill to Brant Point for 3 decades. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you tune in for the next one.